Good morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in on this Wednesday, July 29th. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Shin Se-min. Before we get started, these are the stories we're following at this hour. Pushing for G11, South Korea's presidential security aide says Seoul will work to coordinate continued annual participation of the G7 summit in Washington. Will Trump's proposed G11 be realized, despite other leading economies objecting to the plan? Amassing support to stand against China, Washington's top diplomat says the U.S. will continue to cooperate with its partners to reassert the rule of law in the South China Sea. Life-saving immunization to continue for children in North Korea. The UN grants a sanctions waiver for one of its bodies to give assistance to the regime in its fight against malaria and tuberculosis amid the global COVID-19 pandemic. Our starting point this morning, South Korea's senior presidential advisor has reaffirmed Seoul's intention to join the summit involving the world's 7 major economies. He explained the G7 structure will be expanded to G11, but only if it gets unanimous consent from all G7 members. Our Kim Hyun-chong reports.
South Korea's Deputy National Security Advisor has welcomed President Trump's proposal to expand the membership of the Group of 7, reaffirming Seoul's intention to join the group. In an interview with local broadcaster KBS on Tuesday, Kim Hyun-chong said Seoul needs to coordinate how the country can participate annually in future meetings involving the leaders of top economies. He added that this needs to be raised during the upcoming G7 summit to be held in the U.S. capital in late August or early September. However, Kim stressed that the G7 structure should be expanded to G11 only on the condition that all G7 member states agree. The remark seems to take into consideration the objections voiced by Japan and Germany to the idea of creating a G11 or G12. President Trump has called for expanding G7 membership to 11 or 12 going forward, adding countries like South Korea, Australia, India, and Russia to the group. He described the 7-country organization as obsolete. President Moon Jae-in has also endorsed Trump's proposal, explaining that the G7 structure faces limitations in dealing with mounting global challenges while he was on the phone with his U.S. counterpart early last month. The senior presidential advisor also touched upon the possibility of Chinese President Xi Jinping visiting Seoul this year after his planned visit in the first half fell through. Although Kim did not comment further on the detailed agenda items that could be discussed with the Chinese leader, he said they could range from Beijing-Washington relations, Seoul-Beijing trade relations, to North Korean issues. Kim Hyun-chong, Arirang News.
And now to the escalating U.S.-China relations. Washington says it will work with its democratic partners, including South Korea, to press China to change its ways. Now, this is according to the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo after high-level talks with Australia on Tuesday in Washington. Our Kim Jae-hee with more.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said on Tuesday that U.S. will work with its allies, including South Korea, to reassert the rule of law in the South China Sea, where Beijing has been pressing its claims. His remarks come after he and U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper had a 2-day discussion with their Australian counterparts in Washington.
We'll keep working with our Australian partners to reassert the rule of law in the South China Sea, which the United States and Australia have both underscored in recent important statements.
The joint statement released by the two sides reaffirms that the Indo-Pacific region is the focus of the alliance and that the U.S. and Australia are working side by side, along with ASEAN, India, Japan, South Korea, and the United States' Five Eyes partners. Pompeo also named South Korea as one of its democratic allies during the press briefing. He said whether it's Europe, India, Japan, South Korea, or Australia, he's certain that democratic allies around the world would understand that the challenge of this era is to cherish freedom and push for economic prosperity based on the rule of law. The Secretary of State also praised Australia's efforts to stand up for democratic values despite pressure from China. Australia agreed on the need to uphold rule-based global order, but also made clear the country has no intention of damaging its relationship between China. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
And following India's move, countries like the United States and Japan are reportedly planning to limit access to Chinese-made applications like the video sharing app Tik Tok. Our Kim Dami reports.
With concerns that user data could end up in the hands of the Chinese government, Japan also plans to impose restrictions of Chinese-made apps. According to Japanese broadcasters Kyodo News and NHK on Tuesday, Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party will urge the government to take legislative steps to limit the use of Chinese apps, including the video sharing app Tik Tok. The party's leader, Amari Akira, argued it's an era where it's crucial to look at how information and data are collected and used. The party plans to submit related proposals to the government as early as September. Highlighting that user safety is its top priority, TikTok's corporate body in Japan tries to reassure its users on the same day that no user information will be shared with the Chinese authorities. On the same day, Washington said it plans to ask Tokyo and its other allies to join the ban against Chinese tech firms like Huawei. Japan's Yomiuri newspaper reported Tuesday that the U.S. State Department announced its plans to soon expand its Clean Path initiative beyond 5G to include clean apps. Earlier this month, Australia's Prime Minister also said his government is monitoring TikTok very closely and won't be shy about taking action if needed. Last month, India banned around 60 Chinese apps, including TikTok, citing data privacy risks. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
Over in North Korea, activity has been detected around the uranium enrichment plant at the Yeongbyeon nuclear complex, suggesting continued operations there. North Korea monitoring website 38 North suggests that satellite imagery over the past year shows the light activity at the Yeongbyeon Nuclear Scientific Research Center is far more than just caretaking. Now, the website jots down the date and the number of specialized rail cars that had been going in and out of the area, adding that such a pattern suggests some type of ongoing operation within the facilities, which might require the removal or receipt of some unidentified chemical agents. Despite such detection, UNICEF is sending medical equipment needed to treat malaria and tuberculosis to North Korea. The UN Security Council Sanctions Committee on North Korea announced on Wednesday that it granted a sanctions waiver for such aid by UNICEF last Friday. Now, the equipment includes respirators and cardiopulmonary resuscitation tools worth more than $750,000 US. Now, the supplies have 1 year to be imported into the regime, 6 months longer than the usual exemption, as transporting goods has become difficult due to COVID-19 pandemic. The committee said all member states should properly implement sanctions, but not restrict humanitarian activities. The World Health Organization says COVID-19 is not likely impacted by the changing seasons like other respiratory diseases, contrary to many people's belief. According to the WHO spokesperson, Dr. Margaret Harris, what affects transmissions is not the changing of seasons, but mass gatherings and people not social distancing. She added that people are not taking precautions to ensure they are not in close contact, and Harris also pushed back on the perception that the virus might come and go in several waves, instead of saying that it's becoming one big wave. Billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates predicts that COVID-19 treatment drugs could reduce the death rate substantially by the end of the year. During an interview with CNBC on Tuesday, Gates said a combination of therapeutic drugs and vaccines could greatly drop the number of global deaths. He also noted that Gilead Sciences' remdesivir is one of the most promising treatments so far. And another leading COVID-19 vaccine maker, Pfizer, made it clear on the same day that it will not sell its vaccine any cheaper to developed countries than it's selling to the U.S. Earlier last week, the Trump administration reached almost a $2 billion deal with Pfizer to acquire 1 million doses of its vaccine candidate. And that's around $40 a person. We're now well into halfway through the 2020, but the number of new COVID-19 infections around the world is showing no sign of slowing down. And that includes China, one of the origin of the virus, which is seeing a second wave. Our Lee Seung-jae explains.
At the start of the COVID-19 outbreak, many predicted the spread would subside by the summer. We're approaching the end of July, but the worldwide number of COVID-19 infections is still growing exponentially. Health experts also predicted a second wave would come by fall. However, many parts of the world are seeing a second wave right now. This includes China, where in recent months a number of small outbreaks have sparked concern, with the country reporting 68 new infections on Tuesday alone, the highest number since April. The majority stem from the northwestern city of Dalian, but it's also spreading to 9 cities in 5 regions, including as far away as the southwestern province of Fujian. The Chinese government has tightened measures in the affected regions and is carrying out mass testing. China had previously largely brought the virus under control since it first emerged in Wuhan late last year through strict lockdowns and travel restrictions. In the UK, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is warning there are signs of a second wave in Europe as he defended a 14-day quarantine on travelers from Spain. Johnson said the British government had to be swift while hinting at further action against other countries if necessary. While many parts of Europe have seen a significant decline in infections since the peak of the outbreak, many popular holiday destinations such as France, Turkey, and Portugal are seeing a resurgence. However, with a second wave seen in other parts of the world, governments are struggling to balance the need for stricter measures and trying to reopen their economies, which have been closed for prolonged periods since the pandemic. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics came on the 8th for this year's Forbes list of the world's most valuable brands. The South Korean tech giant's brand value was calculated at over $50 billion. It's dropped one notch from last year, and its value was down by 5% on year. But Samsung was the only Asia-based brand in the top 10. Still, Samsung has been among the top 10 for 4 straight years now, with Apple topping the list, followed by Google and Microsoft. Apple's brand value jumped 17% on year in 2020, and Hyundai Motor ranked 81st with its brand value at over $9 billion, up 17% from the year before.
Good morning. Rain and more heavy rain again today. And right now, heavy monsoon showers are falling in Chungcheongbuk-do province. In fact, the Chungcheongbuk-do provinces could see more than 150 millimeters. But also note that even if you're in the same region, the amount of rainfall could vary, and the rain clouds are moving fast. So heavy rain advisories are in place for some areas, while a heavy rain warning is in place for parts of Jeollado and Chungcheongbuk-do provinces this morning. Now, monsoon season, though, came to an end on Jeju, so blistering heat has moved in with a heat wave advisory there. So Jeju will get up to 33 degrees Celsius this afternoon with some sunshine, while the rest of the country will see highs in the upper 20s across most regions with monsoon rain. Usually in Korea, the monsoon season kicks off at the end of June and lasts for less than a month. So it should have already ended last week, then the sweltering heat sets in. But this year, we're expecting rain through early August for the central parts of the country. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
And that does it for this hour. We'll be back with more of today's headlines coming up at noon Korea time, so do stick around. Thanks for watching and goodbye.